The storm rolled over Crestwood like a slow, angry drumbeat, turning the sky a bruised shade of gray. Rain fell in hard slants, glinting in the faint glow of streetlights that flickered uncertainly along the empty road. Inside a modest two-story house at the end of Alder Lane, a man sat alone, his fingers gliding over a mechanical keyboard, lines of code dancing across the screen in shades of green and blue. His name was Mark Ellison, an unassuming IT specialist, a quiet man who'd spent more time fixing routers and writing emergency response protocols than talking to anyone in his neighborhood. He lived a life of quiet consistency: coffee at 7 a.m., work by 8, fix what's broken, sleep at midnight. But beneath his calm exterior lay something unshakable, a sense of responsibility for the systems that held the city together. Mark didn't wear a badge or a uniform, but his hands kept the digital veins of Crestwood's police department pulsing. Every camera feed, every 911 call, every emergency alert, somehow, it all passed through his silent maintenance. That night, the WA meeting was louder than usual. The neighborhood's leader, Mrs. Karen Blakely, stood with folded arms, her voice sharp and full of self-importance. "This is a residential area," she snapped. "The fiber line running under our community shouldn't belong to the police. We don't want constant surveillance or government access near our homes." The room murmured with a mix of agreement and hesitation. Mark had been there, sitting quietly in the back. He tried to explain that the line wasn't invasive, that it wasn't for spying, but for safety, to ensure the police station's emergency network stayed connected even during outages. But Karen didn't care about explanations. She cared about control, about being the loudest voice in every room. "This is private property," she said finally. "And tomorrow morning, we're cutting it off. WA rules are rules." Mark's stomach sank. He tried to reason again, but she waved him off. "Don't make this personal," she said, smiling with thin lips. "We just want peace and privacy." That night, Mark couldn't sleep. The rain turned heavier, the thunder rolling closer. He thought of the system maps, the connections he had built over years, the small fail-safes he'd designed. He remembered the city's dependency on that single line of fiber, how every 911 call would be routed through it, how the backup relay tower was still under maintenance. He sent a message to the police department's chief IT officer: "Warning, possible disruption tomorrow morning. Recommend temporary reroute." But there was no response. By morning, the storm had cleared. Birds returned timidly to wet branches. But in the heart of Crestwood, something darker brewed. Karen and a few WA board members gathered near the utility box. A local technician, hired by them, crouched to snip the cable. "Do it," Karen said. The man hesitated, then cut the thick orange line. A small spark fizzed, and the connection went dead. Miles away, at the police command center, red indicators flared on the monitors. "We've lost primary data feed," an officer said. "No visual, no dispatch access, no live calls." The backup hadn't been completed. The entire system went dark, communication cut mid-shift. Panic settled in, and then, at that exact moment, something terrible happened. A tanker truck lost control on Highway 91, skidding across lanes, colliding with 3 vehicles. Flames roared, and 911 lines went silent. The police couldn't dispatch rescue. Fire units couldn't locate the crash. Everything, the coordination, the timing, depended on that single, severed line. Mark saw the outage alert on his phone. His heart pounded. He didn't think, he just acted. Sprinting to his workstation, he powered up. A secondary server cluster, one that wasn't supposed to exist. He had built it months ago, a private fail-safe, quietly piggybacking off an unused federal backup framework. It wasn't official, it wasn't even public, but it was there, quiet, dormant, waiting. He logged in, overriding system permissions, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Come on, he muttered as the code lines blinked red, then green. His own server lights came to life, the hum of cooling fans filling the room. Within 4 minutes, he rerouted every lost packet through the Federal Emergency Backup Network, a connection powerful enough to sustain the entire city grid. On the other end, at the police station, systems flickered. "We're back online," shouted the technician. GPS feed restored, dispatch live. Officers surged into motion, coordinates of the accident reappeared, fire and medical teams deployed instantly. The difference between chaos and control was 4 minutes. 4 minutes, and one man's quiet decision. Back at Alder Lane, Mark exhaled shakily. He leaned back in his chair, heart racing. Then the alerts began flooding in, news outlets reporting the crash, social media posts thanking emergency responders for the miracle reconnection. No one knew how it happened. No one except him. By noon, Karen's WA board was celebrating their victory, thinking they had cut the government's line for good. But by evening, the truth began to surface. City officials traced the reconnection path and discovered the unauthorized reroute, an emergency patch linked to Mark's system. The police chief himself drove to his home. When Mark opened the door, his face was pale, exhausted. "Mr. Ellison," the chief said, "you saved lives today. We don't know how you did it, but we owe you." Mark looked down. "It wasn't supposed to be me," he said quietly. "It was supposed to be the system." The chief shook his head. "Sometimes, the system is people like you." Later that week, a city hearing was held. Karen sat near the front, indignant, as the mayor spoke. Due to reckless interference with public safety infrastructure, the Crestwood WA will face penalties and oversight review. Karen's jaw dropped, but no one defended her. Even her board members avoided eye contact. Then, in an unexpected turn, the mayor asked Mark to stand. "We'd like to recognize Mr. Mark Ellison for his exceptional courage and foresight. His actions prevented a large-scale disaster. His silent vigilance is what community truly means." People rose to their feet, applauding. Mark stood awkwardly, hands trembling, the sound of clapping echoing in his ears. For once, he wasn't invisible. That night, after the ceremony, Mark walked home under the soft glow of the streetlights. The neighborhood was quiet, humbled. He passed Karen's house, the curtains were drawn. For the first time, she didn't glare. Maybe she understood now, maybe not, but that no longer mattered. At home, he powered down his servers. For a long moment, he just sat in the dark, listening to the faint hum of the city he'd helped keep alive. A sense of peace settled in his chest. He didn't save lives for applause or recognition. He did it because that's who he was, a man who fixed things, who built quiet safety nets no one saw until everything fell apart. Weeks passed. The fiber line was repaired, this time under city jurisdiction. Karen resigned from her WA position, citing stress. But in truth, everyone knew the reason. In Mark, he went back to his routines: coffee at 7, work by 8, fix what's broken, sleep at midnight. Yet something inside him had changed. One evening, a letter arrived at his door. It was handwritten, the paper slightly smudged by rain. It read, "Dear Mr. Ellison, my husband and son were in one of the cars that crashed on Highway 91. The rescuers told me the line had gone dead for a while, but then came back just in time. I don't know how, but they said if it hadn't, they wouldn't have made it. Someone said you might have had something to do with that. I just wanted to say thank you, for saving my world. Grace H." Mark folded the letter carefully and placed it by his desk. His throat tightened, eyes burning. In that small moment, the silence he'd always lived in felt full, not empty. He looked out the window at the blinking streetlights, the faint hum of the city he loved. A city that would never know the quiet man behind the curtain. But he didn't need them to. The world had enough noise. Sometimes, what saved it was the silence of someone who cared enough to act when others didn't. In the end, Mark didn't see himself as a hero. He was just a man who refused to look away when the line went dead. And somewhere, in the quiet rhythm of machines and code, humanity pulsed, alive, enduring, unstoppable. Because sometimes, it only takes one person, one act, one heartbeat of courage in the middle of chaos, to keep an entire city alive.